I don't really know how I did it in the beginning. I think I did it off of a lot of fight or flight energy. I think I did it off of staying focused and continuing pushing on with my business, and that gave me a purpose. I really leaned in to work, I would say, as well as the community of individuals who did know what was going on, and I got through it.
I look back at something you wrote. I'm going to repeat it back to you because I thought it was so eloquent. You said, humans didn't lose their resiliency because we treated each other too sensitively. Humans lost resiliency because we lost one of the most fundamental resources we used to live with, a village. I think that's such a powerful statement. And what you're saying is that everyone's village looks a little different.
Welcome to In Conversation series presented by Support Now, where we dive into the messy middle of life's tough times and learn how everyday people make it through. Today, Dr. Brooke Weinstein shares her inspiring story of navigating love, loss, and resilience after her husband's suicide. Do you or someone you know need support right now? Support Now is an online platform that helps supporters to provide relief in the form of money, meals, and more to individuals and families in tough times. Through a single online experience, supporters can direct their compassion in meaningful ways. Support Now helps people show up when it matters the most. Start a free registry today at supportnow.org.
Good afternoon, Brooke.
Hi.
It's so great to see you.
It's so good to be here.
I'm thrilled to be in Austin. This is a first for me. I feel like I'm really reuniting with a friend. I don't think I've ever interviewed someone that I truly know. For some backstory for people that don't know, we went to the same college, we were in the same sorority, and while we didn't overlap for long, we were friends on Facebook for a really long time. So I feel like I've been kind of aware of your journey along the way from a distance. And so I just want to say thank you in advance for allowing me to dive in deeper with you, to tell more of your story. I know you're very comfortable telling it. And as I mentioned before, one of the angles that I want to focus on with you today isn't just the grief angle, but also the support angle. My hope is for this interview is that for anyone who knows someone that's experienced what you have, is that they can use this as a guide to know how to show up for others in these really horrible and challenging, tough times. So thank you.
Of course.
Before we begin, I'd love for you just to briefly introduce yourself to those that might not be familiar with Brooke Weinstein.
Sure. Well, I am Dr. Brooke Weinstein. I am a doctor of occupational therapy. I have worked with pediatrics for over a decade, and very quickly after owning my own clinic for 6 years, realized that through the hospital system and the school system and every place that I had worked, I recognized that the treatments weren't working for kids. And so I decided to sell my clinic to my business partner, and that's what ended up moving us. Well, Jonathan's job is what ended up moving us here to Austin. And I now work with parents and now all humans, just because people reach out, and I work with a lot of CEOs and people who want to learn how to regulate their nervous system and teach them about their brain and sensory and emotional regulation. And of course, I'm an advocate for mental health. And I have 2 kids, 10 and 7, and
Yes.
that's me in a nutshell.
So let's talk about it, because you have this competency, this academic and professional competency in sensory trauma, and you've been through quite a bit of trauma yourself. So if you don't mind, please share a little bit more about your background, your marriage, and what has led you to this moment, and we'll go from there.
Sure. For anyone who doesn't know, I am widowed. So I guess I'll start with the end and then go back to the beginning. I met Jonathan when I was in graduate school, and he was like this tall, handsome, handy guy that I was like, oh my gosh, I won the lottery. And it was a whirlwind romance, and we were engaged on our 1-year anniversary. He brought me right back to the ballroom where we first met, and we got married about 1.5 years later. And I think that I, now looking back, could have seen some of the signs of Jonathan and his depression and struggle with depression, but I always had a reason of like, oh, but it's just this, or it's the stress of the wedding, or it's this, or it's that. And we were together for 12 years, but throughout our 10-year marriage, it just continued to get worse very slowly. And Jonathan had his ups and downs. And I would say the hardest part is that anyone who knows Jonathan would say, like, I can't believe he's gone. He was vivacious. He was a top salesperson in his company every single year. Like, the person that the world knew him to be was completely different from who he was in the walls of our home. And that was someone who really struggled to get out of bed, someone who really struggled to even be able to be present with the kids because he was just dealing with such heaviness. I could just see it all over him. And that lasted for many, many years. And Jonathan and I ended up separating for many different reasons, mostly because I finally realized that I needed to take care of myself, not just take care of Jonathan. And he didn't really know how to deal with that or handle that.
Yeah.
And so ultimately that led to us separating, and Jonathan did seek treatment. He attempted a few times, and in April 2nd of 2021, Jonathan took his own life.
Wow. And you had 2 young boys. How old were they at the time?
Charlie was 6 and Eli was a brand new 4. So
Wow.
they were just 6 and just 4.
Wow. Brooke, when you started to identify some of this mental health issues, you mentioned that people at work had no idea. Did anyone else know?
His family knew, my family knew, but when you choose to put a ring on your finger, when you choose to get married and you say these vows like till death do us part, for, rich or poor, sickness and health, that is what sickness is. Like, you decide to stand by your partner. And I don't think that Jonathan really knew how to verbalize how he was feeling. I don't think he really felt comfortable sharing with others, like, hey, I'm not doing well. I believe that there's so much pressure placed on all humans, like female and male. I specifically feel that there is so much pressure placed on males to show up, do your job, get the work done. And males' brains, they are slightly different than female brains. Males' brains, there's a larger portion of their brain that's more logic brain, which is very black and white. Females have a little bit stronger of a portion of their brain that's the emotional side. And so if you think of the brain as a muscle, that atrophy of that emotion side for the male is sometimes what isn't ever really strengthened or worked on. And there's just so much pressure to just keep together and keep going and smile. And I do believe that that's what Jonathan did. And that's what he was taught to do. And he knew no different. He put a lot of pressure on himself.
I think that point is so, so important. Talk about males and females being different in that regard, and specifically dads. I think there's so much emphasis on the mom and what the mom experiences, because the mom physically goes through more.
Right.
And hormonally goes through more. And there's still an abundant amount of pressure and stress on a dad who's coming into a role that they didn't know what was coming, just like moms don't know what's coming.
Right.
It's all very intense.
Yep.
So one of the questions I have for you is, as you were seeing signs of this mental illness, what were you doing for yourself? How were you supporting you in those times? Because one of the things that I hear that's very striking is it doesn't sound like there was this huge community that you could reach towards to say, hey, I'm going through some pretty serious stuff. Mm-hmm. I'd imagine this is also the phase of life where all your friends are getting married and having babies. So people are in this really happy phase. Meanwhile, there's this really, really different side that you're going through, presumably alone.
Yeah. I also want to speak to something you just said previously of moms like taking care of themselves. And I feel that there's a little bit more for moms than dads. I feel like in today's social media world, I feel like moms are choosing to share the hard more, and moms are choosing to own the hardness of it.
Right.
And I think that because of their ownership of that, I think that moms are choosing and trying to choose to seek support. or gain community through being able to just word vomit the heart, if you will, or make funny spoofs about it, or, but just make light of it, or just be able to talk about it. I still don't think that has been opened up for males. I think it's starting to. I'm seeing more and more accounts, but I don't think that it's being pushed through enough, if you will. There's more to be done, I guess you could say. And to your other question of what did I do, there's a moment through my whole journey where my sister, I think Jonathan was actually in an inpatient facility, and my sister, I was like, well, it's fine. It's going to be fine. And she was like, Brooke, this isn't, like, she had like a dose of reality for me where she was like, this isn't normal. She was like, this isn't what a lot of families go through. Like, how many other families do you know where their spouse has gone to inpatient? Or how many other families do you know where someone has attempted suicide? And it was kind of like such an eye-opening moment for me because it was my world, but it was my world silently. And because it's the word normal, right? So you think of this as what a typical family should look like, or the white picket fence. And how do you reach out to someone and you say, hey, my husband's like having really dark thoughts. And like, sometimes John was away on, a work trip. That's where Daddy was. Daddy was on a work trip for a really long time. And I should have talked about it more. I think that he wouldn't have liked if I talked about it. It's,
so it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, it's
you want to respect his
life.
privacy.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you need to seek some refuge.
Yeah, and it's a really big, and that's why I speak about it so often now, is because the stigma needs to be taken away in terms of if you're struggling, you're weak, or if you're struggling, it's not normal, right? Because maybe I didn't know other people my age who their one spouse or another was having thoughts of wanting to hurt themselves, or someone going into an inpatient facility. Maybe I didn't know those types of people, right. But I'm sure others were struggling. And now that I've been through it and now that I'm vocal, I know a million people who are struggling.
So let me ask you, having been through everything you've been through, what would you have done differently for yourself in those years where you knew there was a problem? You knew that this was not normal. What would you tell yourself now?
That's a hard question, because I think by the time I did start taking care of myself was when Jonathan handed me divorce papers. And when anyone asks me, what can you do for someone who is struggling like this? Like, what can so many spouses, male and female, is like, that's my spouse. Like, what do I do? How do I fix them? How do I help them?
Right.
Every single time my response is, you cannot change the outcome. Like, you need to get support for yourself. There is caretaker burden, if you will, in terms of how to support someone moving through that. It doesn't just have to be cancer or an addiction. It can be mental health as well that is necessary in order to take care of yourself. And so I think when you ask the question, like, what is the one thing I would have done differently to take care of myself? I think that's actually one area that I'm really proud of myself, even though it affected our marriage to the point of not being together. I finally said, I'm drowning too, and we have children, and I need to be doing okay. I need to be doing well. And I started to say, I have to support myself. And I would say that that's a lot of the journey that I went on of exactly practicing what I preach, which is regulation and sensory and emotional regulation, and listening into your brain and your body and your feelings, and taking care of those emotions so that you can support them and heal them and not just put them on a shelf. And I believe that that's like at the bulk of it, that is the core of mental health, is sensory and emotional regulation.
So it sounds like April 2nd, you find out that he's killed himself. Were you surprised? Like, what went through your brain? Do you remember?
Oh, unfortunately, yes. I couldn't believe it, but I could believe it. Like, Jonathan was so two different people that it was like, he's going to like believe in himself. He's going to get there. And I couldn't believe it, but I could believe it because he was in a lot of pain for many, 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 many years.
So typically, in our culture, in our society, someone dies, and there is just an avalanche of support that begins to pour in, whether that's through words or action, prayer. You see it through phone calls, emails, text messages. Given the stigma of mental illness, given where you were in your relationship with him, which adds a completely different layer to this, what happened for you?
It was a mix, I would say. People tried. I'm not quite sure it was in the way that I needed. People did try, but I also had zero energy to give. So I think a lot of people can relate to, oh, one of my best friends just had a baby. I'm going to go visit the baby. And I didn't want anyone visiting me after I had my kids. I wanted to just have a bun in my hair, be dirty. I had milk just dripping everywhere. Yeah. We can chat in a few months. Yeah. I'll see you on the other side of this little bit of a nightmare to heal in the whole thing. And so I think that sometimes we feel that everyone needs to flock, and that for some people works. But it also requires, when you move through grief, whether it's something like what I've been through, or no matter what it looks like, your body is exhausted. It takes a toll on your brain and your body. And everyone sent either food or gift cards or things like that for us to make sure that we had food. Usually I would have been sure, whatever people send is fine. I was a little bit more of you know what? If y'all are going to send it, how about you send from these restaurants or things that we will actually eat? So I tried a little bit harder, but it was very uncomfortable for me to ask for that. And I think that we as a society have a really hard time asking for help just in general. A few came over to visit, and it just felt exhausting, if you will, almost like needing to entertain or
put on a face or...
Yeah. And it's exhausting to talk about it over and over and over, especially right when it first happens. Because of the situation or the state of where Jonathan and I were, I think it was friends were all supportive, but it was quite interesting on the family front. And we are all in a very good place now. My sister-in-law, if you will, is actually here right now in town visiting the kids and here for work. We're in a really good place, and I am with some of Jonathan's family, but that did not come without really rocky road, really difficult road. And for me, there was blame. For me, there was pointing fingers and telling me what I'm doing wrong or how I'm living my life, or even that word widow, which that I sat with that word for about a month, and I decided that that's what felt right for me personally. I was Jonathan's one and only love, and he was mentally ill, and we had a family together. We loved each other, and we were still married when he died. And that title, although no one wants that title, it's not a club you ever want to be inducted into. I have a lot of respect for that word. And there was even opinions about that from certain people. And so I had to tiptoe and kind of walk very lightly to figure out where, because I was also fragile at that time. And I was for a really long time. I was fragile for a very long time.
The thing I can't process, or I can't get my head around, all the layers that you're describing. And you're a mom.
Mm-hmm.
And you have 2 little boys.
Mm-hmm.
How in the world did you function through that?
I don't know. I was very, very blessed to have a nanny who was with us before John died. And she knew enough to where she knew this might happen as well. And she and her husband were unbelievable to us. Her husband stepped in to make sure that the boys had some male role in their life. No male friends of mine, no husbands or on Jonathan's side or my friends picked up and jumped in. And I've seen other friends who their spouses passed, let's say, from cancer. I have one of my closest friends actually, unfortunately, her husband passed of cancer. And all of his friends have really stepped in to support her son. And that didn't happen for my boys. But what did happen was my nanny and her husband did step in. And then I met my partner, who's I'm now with, and he's been a huge source of support for them as well. And I mean, from the moment Carter stepped into my life, he met them, and then we had conversations, and I shared intimately of like how they're struggling and what's going on with them. And he was like, I see kids who really need a male figure in their life. And there's many same-sex marriages. There's many children who grow up with two moms or two dads. So it's not like there has to be a female and there has to be a male. But my little boys are growing up with a mom who danced and enjoys, I don't know, makeup and clothes and jewelry and purses. Like, you know, I don't know. And I have no idea what to talk about with their penises. Like someone else needs to have that conversation with them. So Carter has taken that role on for me. But I don't really know how I did it in the beginning. I think I did it off of a lot of fight or flight energy. I think I did it off of staying focused and continuing pushing on with my business, and that gave me a purpose. I really leaned in to work, I would say, as well as the community of individuals who did know what was going on, and I got through it.
I want to quote, I looked back at something you wrote. I'm going to repeat it back to you because I thought it was so eloquent. You said, humans didn't lose their resiliency because we treated each other too sensitively. Humans lost resiliency because we lost one of the most fundamental resources we used to live with, a village. Mm-hmm. I think that's such a powerful statement. Mm-hmm. And what you're saying is that everyone's village looks a little different. So if you're finding yourself in these situations, maybe it's not your parents or your siblings you can turn to. Maybe it is your nanny or a neighbor down the street, these people that you wouldn't traditionally view as like your core tribe. Mm-hmm. But you have to find someone. You have to find some bodies to fill that space, especially in the early days of trauma, where you're truly, it was fight or flight, like you said.
Mm-hmm. I think walking side by side with someone who is going through something is the most selfless thing you can do. And I am sure you've probably even heard it on this podcast before that not all friendships make it, or, you know, like you learn who your people are through it. And I heartbreakingly and sadly lost some along the way from this. But it was because when you are moving through grief, when you are moving through something like this, you literally don't have the capacity to look outside of yourself. It is not that you don't care. It is not that you're being selfish. It's right. You literally don't have the capacity. And you are fighting every single day to continue getting out of bed and give the capacity to what is necessary. But with that, you also find strength you never thought you had. And you do have moments where you're really proud of yourself and you're like, oh, I kicked ass there. Like, okay, I did that. You know, like there's definitely moments where I'm like, I can't believe I did that. I'm so proud of myself. But if you are going to walk side by side, or if you really want to make a difference or support someone through something, you just have to know that it's going to be a journey for them because they're finding their way out of a really heavy, heavy place to be able to almost find themselves again, or show up as someone different than who they were before, you know?
I think that point is also very impactful because, again, we live in a culture where people rush at the point of diagnosis, if it's a diagnosis related, or at loss. Mm-hmm. People are there. They're ready. They want, especially up into a funeral, depending on your traditions. Maybe it's a week longer, a year longer. Mm-hmm. And what you're saying is that it's really about like staying in touch.
Yes.
Like it's maintaining that contact.
That is like the number one biggest thing I could recommend is I remember the people who, and I'm not necessarily even that close to them. I remember a very, like literally their names, and I will never forget texted and then texted again a week later and then texted again a month later. And I was like, I'll be damned. Like, wow. I can't believe she was thinking of me. And it's the food and the flowers and the edible arrangements. Like, I am so appreciative. I don't want to knock them, especially if anyone listens to this and they were one of the ones who sent me edible arrangements. But like, I can't thank you enough. That means that they were saying, hey, I'm thinking of you. Hey, I see you. Like, hey, I know you're struggling. And like all of those mean something. I don't want to minimize that, but it's choosing to check in, or it's choosing to, instead of coming over and just sitting, this is so uncomfortable for me to say, FYI, but like maybe help with the laundry, or like maybe do something, you know, or be like, hey, Brooke, you go, I'm shutting your door. I'm going to lock it from the outside. I don't know how you could do that, but I'm going to lock it. You are going to stay there, and I am going to do something around the house for an hour or two. I think that we don't want to step on toes. Because there is, like I said, a fine line between, I did want some privacy because I was so exhausted, but what I could have used in that time was someone saying, you know what, like, I've got you, like, you go lay down. And it was even hard for me to lay down when my nanny was there. She's like, I hope you one day get to the point where when you're here, if you need rest, you go lay down, even if I'm doing something. And I always use that time of being like, okay, I have two hands rather than one, you know, two bodies here. So like, all the more reason to get things done as much as I can get done right now while she's here. And then once she's gone, then I'm on my own, you know? So long-term help is really the key.
I joke all the time that we live in a world of cash and casseroles. And we do. Mm-hmm. That's what we know. That's what we've been designed to give and support. And as you kind of continue to peel back the layers of people that are actually navigating tough times, what you'll learn, it's not that those things aren't helpful.
Right.
But there are more impactful things. There are more impactful gestures that over time can make a far more lasting impression and create a much more meaningful outcome for the person that you love. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's important to be able to say, and two things can be true at the same time. Thank you for these gift cards. Thank you for this money. And if you really want to be helpful, check in with me in a month or two. Mm-hmm. When my life gets back to normal and everyone's gone back to their normal life. Mm-hmm. And now I'm a single mom raising two little boys without their dad. And frankly, a lot to explain to them over time, which is what you're navigating even today, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But we don't know how to say those things. We don't know how to say, please check on me in a month. We don't know how to say that because it's like a fog. It is like a fog for the first, especially few weeks and especially first few months. And we went from having, and there's many different reasons why people need support, but for me, I went from having someone who I'm used to leaning on, or like if you have a spouse, right? And then it's like, oh wait, I'm supposed to ask this person who we all know we have struggles. We all know that parenthood and life is not easy. Like it's, and especially in today's world with hustle culture and go, 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 go. We're all effing exhausted, you know? So it's like, how do I look at someone and say, can you come like do my laundry in a month? Like, could you maybe do that? That is excruciatingly difficult. And I doubt you will ever hear someone ask that because we know the other person is going through their own stuff. We know the other person has the laundry to do as well and dishes to do as well and putting their kids to bed. And so it's a really hard one for us to figure out how to request our needs.
It's really hard. It's hard to ask and accept help.
Accept it is another one. It's very hard to accept it. It feels uncomfortable because we know that everyone is already exhausted.
No, it's important. Mm-hmm. One of the last questions I have before our rapid fire. It sounds like you had in those moments a lot of things said to you, sent to you, which should be avoided at all costs. Mm-hmm. With mental illness in particular, were there things or are there things you recommend someone say to someone who went through what you went through? Mm-hmm. Because there is such an enormous stigma around mental illness, mental health, suicide. Those are words that make people really uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times they just choose not to say anything because they can't comprehend it. It is truly incomprehensible.
I think the hardest thing, anyone said to me was like, I understand. I'm like, I'm like, you don't understand. And luckily they don't. Like, I'm grateful that not everyone
for good reason, you don't understand.
Yeah. That is a big one. And I think that a lot of people don't want to be asked, like, how do you feel? Like, I think, we don't feel really good, but it's more of, what do you need? Right? Or instead of asking what do you need, it's saying, I'm going to come over and do this. Take charge, take control, because the person who's in the thick of it can't see past it in order to like set some hard boundaries of being like, hey, yo, you do this, you do that. Come on, like, let's all get this together. But it's okay to, I would say, okay to ask questions, especially I would say in a passing like this, because they may want to talk about it, but they may not know that you're comfortable going there.
Good point.
And I will say that if you ask a question that hits a nerve, I guarantee you we absolutely have the strength to say, I just can't talk about that right now. Or like, it's too much for me, because they're feeling the weight of it. So they will be able to say, I really appreciate you asking that, but I can't go there. I don't think that any question is too nosy. And the reason I'm saying that is because the way in which a lot of people heal is by talking. And if you're not talking and if no one's asking these questions, then who are you going to talk to about the hard stuff? It can't just be once a week with a therapist. It has to be, because there's many times where I was at an event or I was sitting somewhere and I was like, I should be like enjoying this, but yet all I can think about is like, I could give two shits about your kid's soccer schedule. Like now I'm there. Like, I care about the soccer schedule. Like, I'm 3 years out, so I'm good. But like in the first year, maybe even 2, I was like, you have no idea. Like, why are we sweating the small stuff? And so you'll go to events, you'll show up, you'll try to push through, but like your brain is just somewhere else. Your brain is really wanting to talk about the heavy, to be able to process through it and to get through it and to check in. Or you can say something like, just checking in. Is there anything you want to talk about? And like, I'm really saying, like, I'm happy to listen.
Or just, I'm still here for you.
Yeah.
Just knowing that people are still thinking about you.
Yeah. When people would drop things off at my door, and sometimes they still do randomly throughout the years, for like Jewish holidays, I'd get like a huge basket of stuff. I'm like, oh, I didn't even realize it was that day. Like, oh, great. Like that's how like in a fog we are at times. And those are the things you remember of just someone doing it without asking, someone just saying, you know what, that's something I want to do. But I also think it's important for the individuals who are listening to this, who are wanting to understand, like, what can I do for someone? Don't do it and don't offer it if you yourself don't have the capacity for it, because then you might feel like you're giving too much, or you might feel resentful and angry that you're over giving, right? Offer the things that you actually have the capacity and ability to do. And that way it's coming from a place of really wanting to do, like, I'm here because I want to be here. I'm not here because someone on a podcast told me to show up and do your laundry. It's like, I'm here because that felt like a calling for me.
Well, and I joke all the time, there's this book or article about love languages. Everyone has their different love language. Everyone has a different support language.
Sure.
And for some people, that is making the meal or dropping off the flowers or walking the dog. But for some people, their superpower, their support language is actually just listening. And that's okay. I don't think that support has to cost money. It doesn't even have to cost an enormous amount of time, but it does need to be authentic.
Yes.
Because what you're saying is that what that also does, not only does it make it easier for the supporter to show up more authentically, it also removes the guilt that you might be feeling, because you know that they're showing up in a way that makes them feel good.
Yes.
And I think that part is what's really just one of the things that I think culturally we can just do so much of a better job of, like, show up as yourself, but show up and be accountable, because that lack of accountability could create more confusion and more, frankly, just a larger distance between you and the person that you care for. Last question before rapid fire. You're 3 years out. How are you? How are you doing? Like, grief, as you have often described, grief doesn't get smaller. Your life grows around it. Your boys are older. You're in a new relationship. But how are you?
I would say that overall, I am doing well, considering what I've been through. I would say that currently, as I get choked up, currently there's some collateral damage because of Jonathan choosing to make this choice that my children are navigating. And it's understandable that they're having struggles or even understanding like why this happened or what this means. And that to me is really heartbreaking. And it's a part of this that it won't ever, right? Like it doesn't get smaller. You learn how to live with it. And that part, my mom used to always say growing up, and I literally think of this every single day, like you're only doing as well as your least well kid. And I'm just like, damn it, Mom, you were right, you know? But I have never felt more support, especially in a partnership, than I do now. My relationship is like a cornerstone of why I'm doing as well as I'm doing. And I'm very grateful. I could go on and on about Carter and how awesome he is to me and to the kids and all of that. But, you know, one day at a time. And I still love doing my work and I love working with my clients. And there's so many things for me to be grateful for. And I see that spark in me come back little by little, you know, in moments. And some months are better than others. Some days are better than others. Some hours are better than others. But I absolutely am very proud of how I've made it through the storm, because I believe that anyone going through anything like this you have to find strength. Like you find strength you never knew you had. And I'm proud of that for me.
I also would like to think that Jonathan sent Carter to you to give you the things that he couldn't give you.
Yeah. I think
as sad and as hard as it's been for you.
Yeah. He's definitely completely different than Jonathan. And I knew that there are certain things I was unwilling to compromise on, if you will. And of course, making sure to make the right choice. I struggled for a while with like, how did I make that choice? How am I here? Like, how did I do this? How did I make all these choices that led to this? Yeah, there are certain things that I made sure to do differently this time.
All right, we're going to move to rapid fire, and then I promise we'll wrap. Thank you. You're doing great. This is wonderful. So these don't have to be one word, but just kind of like...
I'm very long-winded, so I'll try and make it.
Me too. So we're not going to stick to the rules too much. Best gift or gesture someone did for you after Jonathan passed?
Oh, you know, there's this really cute thing that someone gave me. There are many cute things. I would say, okay, I think that it was really helpful that when people sent food, it was with the dietary restrictions that I am a pain in the butt and asked for, because I have Hashimoto's and I'm gluten-free and dairy-free, and I was very appreciative of that.
Yeah.
That way it wasn't just like eating a bunch of crap and then feeling worse because of a flare from my Hashimoto's. So I appreciate that. There was something I got where there was like a blanket and a ladle and like a ladle and like a mix of like chicken noodle soup. And I was like, this is so cute. And it was really sweet. And of course the kids loved the blanket. And I don't know, when you think of being sick, you think of like chicken noodle soup or like, you know, something like that. So that was really, really special. And then I think most importantly, it was the ones who kept reaching out. And it wasn't in a form of a gift. It was, you know, just, hey, checking in. Even if I had nothing to say back, it was just, wow, they took a moment to think about me.
Yeah. Biggest change you've seen in yourself since Jonathan died?
How long do you have?
My flight's at 8.
Okay. Right. Hold on. I think that I am a lot stronger of a human than I was prior to. I'm not a people pleaser anymore. I am not a perfectionist. I am who I am and accept who I am. I'm a lot more able to say, yep, nope, that's not going to work for me. And say it unapologetically rather than, ooh, are they going to be upset? You know?
Yeah.
I think just being confident in the person that I am, I would say, is the biggest thing.
Never again will I, fill in the blank.
Oh, gosh. I have an answer, but it's wildly inappropriate. And nothing. I think it's a lot of different things. Like, never again will I allow a spouse or a partner or anyone to hide behind a mental illness or a struggle. Mm-hmm. You know, I also don't think that I will allow myself to get sucked into someone else's emotional state that they need themselves to work on in order to try and like fix. Like, mm-hmm. never will I fix again. I'm happy to support. I will support all day long. But supporting means walking side by side rather than trying to be the master creator of the world and think, okay, if I just do this one thing, it'll fix it. Okay, if I just do this thing, it'll fix it. Mm-hmm. So I'm not interested in fixing anymore, really just supporting.
Beautiful. Mental illness is?
Sad, unfortunate, very real, and it's, you know, it's reality, especially in today's world. I think we are trying to keep up with the rate of literally technology. And I don't think that people recognize just because you can get a text message on your phone, ding, doesn't mean you have to answer it. Like, we used to write letters to each other. Like, you know, like, I don't think my son went to sleepaway camp. He's like, what do you mean I'm writing you a letter? Like, what is the mail? You know, like, they understand the mail. But you know what I mean? It's just, we're going so damn fast, and humans are not recognizing that that is a part of mental health, and why everyone is struggling is because they are trying to keep up with the hustle and the rate at which we are supposed to function, which your brain was never meant to function that fast.
One word to describe Jonathan?
Lonely, I would say. I mean, there's a lot of other words, but lonely. Even with tons of support, very lonely.
One word to describe Carter?
Carter's a badass. He's a badass.
And one word to describe yourself?
Strong. Mm-hmm.
You're really strong.
Resilient.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I was thinking about this even when I was preparing for this on the plane, about how proud I am of you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
And it's really cool to hear you acknowledged on this interview multiple times how proud you are of yourself. I feel like so many times we overlook as humans saying, gosh, I'm proud of myself for doing something, whether that's professionally, personally, in our relationships. It's so important to remind ourselves, like, man, I'm doing some really amazing things. Mm-hmm. But you are really doing some amazing things. And I can't tell you, I've wrestled with this topic and bringing this topic up a number of times. Mm-hmm. And I have waited and waited and waited to do it because I wanted to find someone that could speak to it, not just because they've experienced it, but because they have an authority on it, both from a personal perspective, but also professionally. Like, you have a gift.
Thank you.
And I'm so proud to know you. I'm so proud to watch you shine your light on so many people, not just moms, not just women, people. Because what you're talking about is so important. It's a stigma, especially as we talked about before with men. And so I know that you constantly, every day you have to put one foot in front of the other and keep pushing forward. But thank you for keep pushing forward, because you're helping a lot of people in the process.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I think by feeling my feelings and allowing myself to feel my feelings, I think I know how hard some of those feelings are. And then I can look back and say, wow, I did that. Like, I sat in the muck, or I allowed myself to, like, there were days where I was like curdling over, crying in my bathroom, just like to the point where like my eyes were so puffy. As I was crying, I was like, I know this is exactly what I need to be doing right now. Like, I know this is exactly where I'm meant to be, and this is what I should be doing right now. It wasn't, when am I going to stop crying, or when is this going to go away? And I think having that perspective of like, I know this is just where I'm supposed to be right now, and it's okay that this doesn't look so pretty, has allowed me to feel proud of the way in which I've moved through the process of grief and continue going. So thank you.
Of course.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to In Conversation series by Support Now. We hope today's journey has provided insights and strategy for times of grief. Remember, if you or someone you know is facing challenging times, Support Now is here to assist. To learn more or start a free registry, visit us at supportnow.org.